Our project is called Women in
Hip
Hip Hop.
Hop.
With this specific project, it's under the scope of Ear Appeal. So Ear Appeal is an artist collective that focuses on addressing different social norms affecting people who are typically marginalized within the arts. And specifically, we're addressing women right now when it comes to women of color in the hip hop industry.
Like, we're both dark-skinned women, also in hip-hop. Growing up, there wasn't a lot of representation of women rappers. There's always a certain look and there's a certain style that, let's say, major companies usually invest in. Meanwhile, there's a lot of other dope female rappers that we either met or we've just seen, like, in the States and different places, and they're not usually as invested in because of their appearance. We just want to be that kind of representation for other females who are there and just kind of provide that platform as well.
So with the showcase, which is something I'm really excited about, women within hip hop from the Toronto scene, a lot of great artists that focus on hip hop, spoken word, poetry, the panel discussion that we're going to be having. It's going to be an opportunity for women to develop allies.
I was talking about my doubts before I had my first show last year, and I was like, oh, maybe no one will come, no one will support. And it's just like, because I was surrounded by a good group of people, a good community, the event was a success, and that's essentially what we want to do too. We want to also provide that platform, create it, and just show other people that you can be yourself and be successful in this industry.
Hi everyone, my name is Brittany X Miranda Manu. I go by X Miranda, and I'm a hip hop artist, an advocate, and a curator, and the founder of the artist collective Ear Appeal. And I'll be moderating our discussion today. So for today, we're going to be talking about a lot of issues that have happened worldwide and across Canada when it comes to Black women and creatives across the scope of the experience of Black women. A lot of times there's discrepancies in gender and racial inequalities that are exacerbated by colorism, featureism, patriarchy, and media narratives. Today, we're going to be having an in-depth panel discussion. But before we get into this discussion, we have to foremost confront the colonial practices aimed at eliminating Indigenous creativity, freedom, and ownership. While researching Indigenous history, I found out about the Mi'kmaq people who are often forced to disown their identity because of colonial practices. And these practices legitimize settler colonialism, despite them being the original caretakers of the land. In light of this, I would like to acknowledge that Canada is the land of the First Peoples, Inuit people, as well as the Métis. I would like to pay homage to the Indigenous people, past, present, and future, that continue to work to improve our culture, our communities, and to the country as a whole. I would like to also recognize this land as shared through treaties and contemporary treaties, and land that continues to be unceded territories. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Josh Dyer, who's the Director of Marketing at the Mycemium, for opening remarks. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, X Miranda, for the kind introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'd like to welcome you all to what is sadly the final installment of Mycemium Intersections Quarantine Edition. As X Miranda mentioned, my name is Joshua Dyer, the Director of Marketing at Mycemium of Toronto. For those of you who are new to Mycemium, we are a museum without walls that shares the stories and lesser known narratives of Toronto's past, present, and future. We do this through a variety of exhibits, events, both across the GTA and online. Today's event was originally slated to take place as part of our Mycemium Intersections Festival. However, in light of the postponement of that festival due to COVID-19, we've been working with the artists, the organizers, from each project to reimagine how we can share their work or collaboratively host events online like we are today. We're incredibly grateful for the cooperation we've received from all of our partners and panelists and all of the support from our community. When we first pivoted to online programming, we weren't really sure what to expect, but have been really surprised by the impact and relevance of some of the discussions we've been able to host online and how engaged our audience has been. So thank you all for sticking with us through this all. With that said, I'd like to thank again our moderator and our panelists We are totally honored to have this powerhouse group of women doing big things in the city at this moment to join us today. And so thank you all for sharing your time, your insight, and your experiences with us. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's event or find it insightful or impactful, I encourage you to check out the rest of the Museum Intersections Quarantine Edition events, all of which have been recorded and are available on our website. You can follow us on social media, or if you want to stay in the loop, subscribe to our newsletter. So I'll pass things back to Esmeralda. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Josh. So first off, before we get right into the video, I just want to officially thank Factor as one of our main partners, in addition to the Mycenium, for this opportunity. Thank you.
My 9 to 5, hey, paying the flights to Dubai, hey, I need a slice of the pie, hey, oh, eyes on the prize, hey, filling my mama with pride, hey, with the $1 million ride, hey, I need a slice of the pie, hey, oh, eyes on the prize, for them buses slaving on the budget and
Thank you. So that was just a clip of my music video, Eyes on the Prize. You can check that out on all streaming platforms and a lot of my other music as well. So up next, we'll be introducing right about now, Tracy K. So let's introduce Tracy K right up next.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? My name is Tracy K, and I'm an artist based in Toronto. I am a singer and rapper. I am a hip hop artist, and I'm definitely super excited to join you guys. I'm so glad that everybody was able to join us during this panel, and I'm excited to have this discussion.
Thanks, Tracy. We're glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
So up next, we'll be introducing Dija SB.
What's going on? How you doing?
Dija.
DJ SB. I don't know what to say about myself. I just anything you need to know about me, you can hear in the music. So, yeah, DJ SB, rapper, creative. Glad to be here. Let's go.
Thanks, Dija, for showing up here. So up next, we'll introduce.
I stay drowning in the traumas of yesterday. Many past mistakes that I made. It's kind of crazy, too many what ifs and maybes. They say the past doesn't last, but it lasts within my memories and the cemetery. Blocks of bodies, bodies from blocks.
I think we might be having a little bit of technical difficulties with the sound for Dija's music, but trust me, her music's mad dope though, trust me. So up next, we'll be introducing Sadani. Can we have Sadani up next?
Safe, breathe, I trust, purge, purify, I'm dry, die, my lust, feel me, energy, feel me, energy.
Hi, Sadani.
Hi, the host has to turn on my video, but
I
hello.
know, technical difficulties never fail when you're live.
Okay, well, that's the picture of me holding the microphone in my little display. So hello, everyone.
Thanks, Sadani. We really appreciate you coming out today.
I very much appreciate being invited. Yes, so for those of you who don't know, hello.
Hey.
I am a rapper. I'm a community organizer. I am a mother. And yeah, I'm excited to share my insights and experiences of music today.
Thanks so much, Sidani. It's great to have you. Excited to hear your perspective. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to be introducing Keisha Fresh.
Studio 6, Damascus series. No complaints, I'm winning, and I do this for myself. I just got a racket and then I spent it on a belt. This is not Hollywood fresh. This is that tech and that vast. This is that east and that west. This is that settle for less. A crib in the Ville with a mask. Now checkers with chest. Your shorty not fresh. Know where she going? I'm straight off the jet. See this outrageous, but baby say last. Keisha stop playing. I'm knocking off heads. Hold up. Okay, slow it down.
Hey, Keisha, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. How are you?
That was fire. So dope to have you here.
Chill.
Like, excited to have
Thank
you
you.
here.
Thank
So
you. I'm
great.
excited to be here. I'm Keisha Fresh, MC from Toronto, MC and educator. I'm super excited to be on a panel with my sisters. And, I'm just really excited to get into this.
Nice. So glad to have you here. Okay, so we're good with all the introductions. So we're going to get straight into this. And I'm really excited to have everyone on board, ready to get into these, tough but really necessary questions. And I just want to give everyone the opportunity. If you have any questions or any comments, please don't hesitate to put them down in the chat. We're open to everyone sharing their point of view. So to get started, the first question I have for all of us here is, how has COVID-19 affected you as an artist? And are there any differences between how this has affected Black women in the industry? So we could start with Dija, since Dija's right to the left of me, we could start with that.
Yeah. As an artist, I think I had one show that I had to get canceled, but I've seen the community try their best to kind of create opportunities for us, especially like this, like just IG live performances. Not sure how it impacted me as a Black woman, but I just know as an artist, stuff like touring and being able to be out there with your fans, those are the most important things, right? So COVID impacting that is, you just have to find different ways, I guess, to kind of collaborate and find yourself outside, like trying to connect with your fans in a different way.
Very true. That's a good point, Dija. Does anyone else have any other points with that as well, in relation to how COVID-19 has affected you? Oh, Keisha, are you talking? I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'd say something, from the perspective of being a hip hop artist. Like DJ said, I don't know if there's been any kind of difference as a Black artist with COVID, but like I had some bookings obviously through Wavelength and a couple other companies lined up through the summer that have been canceled. And, that transition to online has been a little more difficult because I notice a lot of companies are booking people who can play and sit with a guitar and, play instruments. I was approached by a company. They're like, do you play any instruments? Like, we want you to be on our live, but do you play any instruments? And it's like, no, I don't. Like, I rap, like, I'm gonna give you a show with a microphone, but they're looking for that specific kind of, those specific genres or people that, can accompany their performance with something more than just a microphone. So I feel like that's kind of putting us into a little bit of a box, or kind of diminishing a little bit of our opportunities as, rappers. But at the end of the day, I mean, I just hope we can get back to being on stage and feeling that live energy soon. So
True. I totally agree with you, Keisha. And even as you mentioned that, like, there's something that sometimes I think about relating to the perception of hip hop at times. And I feel like sometimes there's a negative kind of connotation towards hip hop in some lights, where there's specific genres that are kind of more like seem more friendly when it comes to other people's perceptions. And sometimes that can be difficult to navigate, especially with a time like this with COVID-19. So Tracy and Sidani, do you have any additional comments that you would like to make on this question?
Just to add on, sorry about that. Just to add on, I've also lost a lot of shows, and just like Dija was saying, the community in general has definitely tried their best in regards to creating other online opportunities for us to perform at. I've had a few, not as many as performing live, but I definitely love how, like, shortly after COVID, the community came together and we tried to create more opportunities for us to kind of perform and still work collectively. So that's one good thing I could say, just seeing everybody come together in ways that we might not have come together before COVID. So.
Thanks, Tracy. I totally agree with you. I've seen a lot of that as well. So Danny, you want to add any comments as well to that question?
I think just, I guess, like piggybacking on whatever has already been said, it's just been a really difficult transition to performing online. I feel like, especially because like I'm not like engaging my socials and like engaging in that way is not my strong suit already. So having to like perch my phone up in front of myself and like talking to myself, even though like I do that on a regular basis, having to talk to myself on my phone, like versus just doing it because I want to, it's two different feelings and experiences, you know what I mean? And like as an artist, like I'm like primarily a performer, like a performing artist. Yes, I'm a writer, I'm a rapper, I do all these other things, but like performance is so important to what I do, and like engaging with the audience and that audience connection, like it's really, really difficult to navigate. And like even the difference between like maybe a Zoom chat versus like Instagram live, or there was one live where I did where they were streaming me from like one website to another. So there was absolutely like engagement on my screen. It was just me. There was no words. I couldn't, nobody's, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
it was really awkward, you know what I mean? So like that has been like the hardest transition or hardest thing in terms of like how COVID-19 has affected my things.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Sadani. And that's one thing now. It's like it's a really weird time to be an artist. And like it's kind of even difficult thinking how this is actually going to affect artists in the long term when it comes to, you know, different events, expecting artists to kind of do more of these type of performances. So we'll see how that pans out in the next couple of months after everything dies down with COVID. So right now we're going to get into the next question, but before we get into that, we're going to watch a short clip of one of the initial artists, I would say one of the 4 founding artists of women in general, Black women in general, when it comes to music. And this is a video of Nina Simone talking on her perspective of artists reflecting the times.
An artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times. I think that is true of painters, sculptors, poets, musicians. As far as I'm concerned, it's their choice. But I choose to reflect the times and the situations in which I find myself. That to me is my duty. And at this crucial time in our lives, when everything is so desperate, when every day is a matter of survival, I don't think you can help but be involved. Young people, black and white, know this. That's why they're so involved in politics. We will shape and mold this country, or it will not be molded and shaped at all anymore. So I don't think you have a choice. How can you be an artist and not reflect the times? That to me is the definition of an artist.
Okay, thanks for sharing that clip. So up to the next question now, just to piggyback off of that. So what do you guys think about women in hip hop feeling obligated to speak on human rights issues or different issues relating to the current situation with Black Lives Matter and the movement, or political issues relating to defunding the police? So how do you guys feel about that right now? So I'll just start off with Dija, if you have any opinions to share on that.
How do I feel about like Black women specifically?
You could share based on any perspective you feel, like whatever comes to you. So it could be based off of Black women or artists in general that consider themselves allies, or men within the Black men within the industry, or men in general.
I don't think it's anything new, to be honest. Like if you understand the history of hip hop and how it became to be, it was always because the Black community and the marginalized community needed an outlet. And if you go back to some of the most popular rap records, they all are pretty much political. They all have a story of either, again, a time, like Nina Simone said, telling the story of the time. And since racism and police brutality and all of these things have always existed, then that means that artists have always been speaking about it, right? So I feel like, again, it's just nothing new. I feel like music just amplifies it. It gives people another outlet to be able to express themselves. And Black women are, and the Black women in the Black trans community are at the forefront of all of everything that you see in terms of like the marches and stuff like that, and just trying to revolutionize the world. They're at the forefront, so of course they're going to be major voices.
Thanks, Dija. I really agree with you on that, with 100% with the sentiment you're sharing. Does anyone else want to comment on some of the like artists, even relating to artists that may feel like it's not their place to speak on human rights or political issues? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Keisha, I see you unmuted. Do you want to share on that?
I mean, I feel like what Nina said, pretty much, yes, it is totally true. And I feel like you do get a lot of that, especially with Black women. You know, we do try our best to reflect the times that we're living in, speak about what we're dealing with, what we're going through. You know, when you listen to Deja's new record, when you listen to Sadani's music, you know, even your music, we reflect, you know, what we're dealing with, what we're going through, our realities and our truth. And so I do agree that is something that, you know, it's just something that we do anyway. I think that definitely in the earlier times of hip hop, it was something that was more accepted, more appreciated. You know, where MC Lyte and then artists, you know, Queen Latifah can really speak on what's going on, and it actually get played in the clubs, it get played on the radio. And, you know, conscious rap has become such a genre now where it's like a specialty, and it's like, yo, that's what hip hop was about. It's not, it shouldn't be looked at as a caveat or especially, or, you know, whatever. This is where it came from. So when we talk about women, I think women have always led the charge when it comes to political battles and you know, speaking on any types of issues that affect the Black community, especially women in hip hop. You know, like I mentioned, when you listen to Queen Latifah's albums, when you listen to MC Lyte's albums, yeah, there's the party record here and there, but most of the content in these songs were about women's rights, were about, you know, women feeling that they are not respected, and telling you how they want to be respected in their song. You know, when you listen to UNITY, you know, you listen to the first verse in that song, you know, it's something that we've always been doing. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of entities that would rather push another narrative of female rap, but a lot of us are out here doing that work. So, you know, I totally relate to what Nina Simone was saying.
Thanks, Keisha. That's a really good like point of view to come from, because people forget that there's so many rappers in the past who have led the charge for like the kind of like what the quintessential female rapper looks like and beyond that as well. And people forget that consciousness and being aware of the times and reflecting that is embedded in hip hop. So that's like such a great point to bring out, Keisha. So Sadani, do you have any comments that you would like to make on this specific question? Okay, no comment. How about you, Tracy?
I feel like everyone pretty much said everything.
Nice.
I believe that when we rap, when we express ourselves through music, it is a reflection of what we are going through. So you'll get just that.
Definitely. 100%. So thanks everyone for sharing. So the next video we're about to watch is by a young woman by the name of Ellen Chamberlain, and she's an advocate and an educator and does a lot of work in the hip hop sphere. So she's going to be talking a little bit about ownership and the outlook of women in hip hop in general. So we'll get into that right now.
You know, when I considered what was it that really shifted in this hip hop culture and specifically in hip hop music, two things come to mind. First, ownership, and then outlook. So in its infancy, hip hop was underground, it was independent. You know, we were at the club, on the street, and maybe you might put together a mixtape and maybe it might get played. But the point was that the music was owned by the people who created it. Now, conversely, the radio stations, the urban radio stations that played this music were also owned by the people who inhabited those very communities that this music was affecting. Eventually, hip hop became a commodity. We lost ownership of the music. We lost ownership of radio stations. And when that happened, lyrical content completely changed. Now, of course, you'd still hear some crazy things on the radio pre-1995, but not 24 hours of programming glorifying violence and drugs and outright foolishness like you do today. Ownership afforded us balance. And when we lost ownership in hip hop, the scales just shifted. Now let's consider outlook. So the outlook shifted naturally because of ownership. If the person who owns the music has no ties to the community that that music is affecting, why should they care what the content is? In fact, record companies seem to be investing in the most degrading and destructive lyricism that they can find. But sensationalism sells, right? And if that record company that's getting rich has no ties to the community that is breaking down as a result, who cares? Radio stations and TV stations, your music channels, you know, they program certain things. It's truly programming. If your community has programming that only tells you that you are a whore or worse, why should you think anything else of yourself? So at this time, with the shift in hip hop and the shift in ownership and outlook, women kind of morphed into being props. There was this era in hip hop, it was really cool but a little strange, where everybody had a rap crew. There was No Limit Records and Bad Boy Records and Murder Inc. and Terror Squad, and it was all these guys, all these hip hop rap dudes, and every squad had to have, you know, at least one rap chick. That's how you showed you weren't completely misogynistic. You had a girl on the squad. But those women were only able to shine because they placed themselves as a prop to a man. Gone were the days of independent lyricists who could just put out their own music, like MC Lyte, like Latifah. Around this time, it's also interesting to note that after the rap crews kind of started to fizzle out, female hip hop, female MCs, also called femcs, all but disappeared from the landscape. You know, it was in 2010 when women made a return. We were gone for almost a decade. In the beginning, women were celebrated in hip hop music. You know, we inspired the music. We told the DJ when we loved his music. We rallied behind the MCs with the international hip hop cry to let you know your lyrics were tight. Oh! Everybody knows that sound. That's when you know that the bar you just dropped rocked the crowd.
Okay, so that was like a nice segue for our next question by Chamberlain here. And the question that we have, even if any of you want to speak on balance specifically relating to content, but also about objectification of women and kind of women fitting or being confined to that specific box and how that affects the content created by women. And then in addition to that, if anyone wants to talk about the notion of one female rapper dominating the industry, if that's actually a true notion. So if any of you want to have any comments on that. So Keith, I see you unmuted, so.
Yeah, for me, I've first of all, shout out to that sister in that clip. I love that clip. I watched it a couple times, and you know, everything she's saying really on point. I really like the delivery of that. A major thing for me in this particular discussion and this particular point comes from, you know, when yes, the media does push a narrative of one female rapper. Obviously, it's the one that we always see on the TVs, is the one that we always see and hear and talk about, which is the over-sexualized female rapper. However, history itself shows that they're not usually the most successful. Like, for example, Da Brat. She's the first female act to go platinum. And outside of the first female solo act to go platinum outside of Salt and Pepper. You know, when you look at Da Brat's image, it was never an over-sexualized image. It kind of, she had a moment, you know, the what do you like in that kind of era, but her overall image and what she started with was always very much her on brand, you know, very much flannel shirts and stuff like that, and just rapping about having fun with her homies or whatever. And she was the first to go platinum. When we look at Missy Elliott, the first female rapper inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, the only female rapper to all of her albums have gone platinum or better. You know what I mean? So when you look at the statistics and you look at the numbers, and you look at, you know, what's going on behind the scenes, and you look at how successful the careers of people like Missy Elliott, who didn't want to conform. She made some sexy songs, and she, you know what I mean? But she never conformed her image in the sense of, you know, the over-sexualization that the industry tried to push. And when you look at today, a lot of those artists who were back in the 90s, who they were trying to over-sexualize and push that image, a lot of them aren't around today, but guess who is around? You know what I mean? So I feel as though with that particular discussion, yes, there's something that's always put in our face, but the listeners, they're the people who are buying the albums, it has a different narrative in my opinion. So that's kind of my whole stance on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, because that is really true, where a lot of times the over-sexualization of female rappers is kind of the commercial aspect that people like to push, but at the same time, there's always people who are able to push through and get to the forefront, and then the quality kind of is able to show for itself. And I see Sadani is unmuted. Do you want to comment on that?
So honestly, I feel like as far as that goes, it obviously has a lot to do with like what like the main topics this whole thing is about, like the intersections of colorism, like anti-Black racism, you know what I mean, and like misogynoir, and like how that affects like Black women, you know what I mean. And like even it's ironic, because when you look at the numbers of like who's successful over time, over the history of hip hop, and you look at where hip hop and like females and like women in hip hop, are now, like women and non-men in hip hop are now, and like what it's like how certain conversations around like feminism and like, you know, the liberation, like the liberation of like women in music now, like how like the conversation around Black women in the music industry and the media kind of gets like blanketed, because like at the end of the day, like Black women are still forced into these boxes and are still like pushed in the media more than like women who are maybe not necessarily embodying all of these hypersexual stereotypes, and like they're not like being spoken about, you know what I mean? Who would have known those numbers in terms of like how they're relative to like the over-sexualized image of like Black women in hip hop? No, I definitely wouldn't have. It's news to me, you know what I mean? Like in terms of who and what is being seen, and like, because when you think of like women in hip hop who are like the heavy hitters, you're thinking of Lil' Kim, you're thinking of Foxy Brown, you're thinking of like Pop Pum Pum type rappers, you know what I mean? And like that's the narrative that is constantly pushed, you know what I mean? And then it's like, even when we're talking about like the climate of like hip hop for us as rappers in Canada, like how does that negatively affect us, because the Canadian hip hop industry has this obsession with like conservative, with this like, you know, staying in this conservative bubble. So, you know, women who might like adopt that sexualized or any sort of sexualized, hyper feminine branding, Black women in hip hop, they don't get no play, you know what I mean? But then also in the Canadian industry, they still play into that one shorty at a time or one person at a time type thing. So like not everybody can get the same kind of love in the same spaces, you know what I mean?
Exactly. No, I totally agree with you. And that's one of the key things is balance. There needs to be space for everyone to just be themselves and not feel like they have to confine to a specific route in order to be successful. We should all just be able to be ourselves. So thank you for sharing that point, Sidani. Deeja, do you have any comments that you would like to make?
I think everything has pretty much been said, but yeah, I totally agree with what you guys are saying. Like there does have to be balance. There doesn't have to be one person at a time, one sort of image or narrative at the time being pushed. Yeah, I think everybody really wrapped up everything that I had in my head as a thought. So.
Thanks, Deeja. Do you have any comments as well, Tracy?
No, I definitely agree. And then I guess another question I would ask is then how do we, you know, change that narrative as hip hop women? How do we as Black women, how do we change that narrative, you know? And it's through supporting through supporting one another, but also what are other ways that we can do that? I think that would be
See, a big thing for me, like in response to what you said, Tracy, like I'm tired of it having to be us having to figure out the solutions to the problems that are not created by us for us.
Yeah.
It becomes a point where it's like the pressure needs to be put on other entities, venues, you know, media platforms and stuff like that. It's always Black women that have to be the ones to fix problems we didn't create. You know what I mean? We're out here doing what we're supposed to do. We're out here doing what we love, which is rap, make music, you know, put our heart into this. But it's not enough. People want us to figure out how to get our music played and figure out how to be our own managers and figure out how to, you know, like artists as talented as Sidani, Deeja, you know, we have to crowdfund. We have to, you know, work 9 to 5s, you know, 365 to even just be able to put out an album. Whereas, you know, the granting system in this country is so skewed. It's so flawed. And those things need to be addressed, but why did we have to address? Like, there are other people who benefit off of what we do, who sit at the table. Speak up for us at some point. Help me, help us. You know what I mean? So
I agree, and I think that's why it's so important. I think I was talking to Brittany about it, like how it's so important for us to like put pressure on these organizations and these companies. I was like, what we can do is like develop like some type of email system for whoever is down, find out all our allies. We can even type up the little memo, send it to them weekly, send it to them every other day. All you have to do is copy and paste, like, you know what I mean? We need to, like you said, we need to put pressure on these people because often at times we have to carry the load. We have to do everything on our own. And it's just like they benefit off of this culture while dismissing the very people who started it.
And I was just gonna say, like, and I feel like where we're at in the conversation now, it's beyond putting pressure on their industries. It's redirecting energy towards creating our own, because applying that same pressure with the same energy, like we're doing GoFundMe and within the blink of an eye, you're doubling your goals, amen. So if you're able to do that amongst yourselves in such a little bit of time with a little bit of organization, and then it's like, we already know, one of the things that's troubling to me in my personal life is like everybody in Toronto likes to yip about how hard it is, but you within yourself, you don't have the cooperative skills to work with somebody next to you and 2 other people in the neighborhood, you know what I mean? So it's like acquiring those, like, you know, interpersonal skills yourself in order for us to like build communally and it actually have some long-term effect, you know what I mean? And like not like relying on the Canadian industry, because like even when we look in like our neighborhoods and we look at the man them, like they're doing it themselves. Like when you look across the border, the key and the solution is literally do it yourself. The power of like doing it yourself, doing it together, and like using the internet as a real vehicle. Because it's like, it's not like people are not paying attention to what's happening in Canada. And like at the end of the day, and it's like the less attention we pay to like Canadian execs, to Canadian labels, and it's like, it's not even a diss thing, but it's like dead ass. Like I have never sent an email to any Canadian executive label, anything ever. Is it because I'm lazy? Maybe. Is it because I don't care? Probably more of that. Because at the end of the day, like we've already seen it so many times, unfortunately, like as Canadian artists in this industry, our value is nothing. It's like the Canadian dollar to the American dollar. We're nothing in this market. So we have to take the dollars elsewhere. You guys are getting me hype.
No, I appreciate that, Sadani. One thing I want to even add to what you're saying, Sadani, is like, especially when you said like about like a lot of us are kind of like, you know, because I think because with Canadian culture, it seems like we're not willing to invest in ourselves unless like there's some like superior entity, usually a male, saying that, hey, this person's dope, like this person's what's up, you know? And then that's when all the money comes to you. But at the same time, I feel like we have to have that mentality that like all we have is all we need, and like collaborate, work together, and just go beyond like the confines they're trying to put us in, you know?
I was about to say, Danny even just reminded me, when you're like, guys from our neighborhood, they literally, all they did was band together. The way they support one another so much. And then look at it, they're putting up the views.
They use male, obviously they have their male privilege because like that's how they're able to like push up their numbers like across the board, but they don't have that much more resources than us. Like these are our neighbors, you know what I mean? So it's like applying what are the barriers that are stopping us from being able to do the same things. And it's like how also recognizing like the achievements and the success that you're able to do based on like people in my how I've garnered my like DIY success is by like, okay, like what did you do? Okay, you're that festival. Okay, bet I know I can get that festival because Canada's industry is this small. I'm getting that. And building up so by the time I'm ready to go, even if I don't have the numbers, like not playing, and that's what I'm saying, not playing their game, because there is like understanding our value as artists and like having these conversations, especially as like Black women, Black non-men, like operating in a music industry that is literally like 15 years behind the time, you know what I mean? So it's like, how do we have conversations amongst one another to remind ourselves like, yeah, you're worth it, keep doing what you're doing. Oh yeah, do this festival. Hey, by the way, do this link, you know what I mean? And it's like, making sure that we're sending the energy to one another, because it's like, what if I could go and perform in LA for free with less than 3,000 followers on Instagram, then any man could do it, you know what I mean? It's like, when I drop my next project, I'm not Toronto who I might do a little collecting money change to go. Bye.
Exactly. And that's I totally agree with you, Sadani. That's a thing where we have to stop thinking just like about the municipal situation we're in and think globally, because you have like one thing I strongly believe is we all have audiences and pockets of people who are going to rock with us regardless of the styles, the like, you know, the societal like status quo or whatever. People are going to rock with you regardless, depending on whatever they connect with you on. So there's a whole world of people, and we don't have to feel like pressure to stay like targeting an audience that isn't actually gravitating toward us, you know? So I really appreciate that comment, Sadani. Do you have a comment you wanted to make, Dija? Is there a...
I was gonna say, like, yeah, I recently so for Bandcamp Day, I raised $1,000 just by people buying my music. Started a GoFundMe. I got $3,000. I allocated it towards finishing my album, so the mixing and mastering process. I hired PR, and I told those PR people, don't focus on Canada at all. Anything that I need to conquer in Canada, I've already conquered, or I'm just not gonna get there because they don't care.
Period.
So, yeah, so I told them UK, America, make those my priorities. So I allocated money towards that. And the only thing that's kind of difficult is you're doing things that you're not supposed to be really doing as an artist. Like as an artist, I'm not supposed to be filling out applications or like information about like this, that, and the third. Like I'm supposed to have a manager or somebody in like some sort of company doing that for me. All I'm supposed to be really responsible for is my art. But seeing as how we don't have those opportunities, we just have to do 10 times more. And honestly, it's fine for me because I know that the community supports me, seeing as how I did all of this and I'm doing it all by myself. And the thing that's really, really funny is that once they see you doing it by yourself, that's when they want to jump on board. And then it's just like, honestly, my kind of perspective on it is I'm going to play their game. And then as soon as I have enough, then that's when it's time to kind of build our own kind of like resource or our own label or our own whatever it is that we can do. Because honestly, everybody has a job and everything is a job. So like as an artist, this is our job, right? Not a lot of people like working sometimes, you know, and you're always gonna have to work for somebody else. But I feel like with music, you can work for somebody else, and then as soon as you grab those resources, as soon as you get that enough, you could definitely make your own. So that's kind of like where I'm trying to head with it.
I totally agree with you. And I like the point that you made, DJ. One thing is with Canadian artists, it's like we have to, like, it's like a forced thing where you have to be an entrepreneur, you have to be your own like business manager and do all these different, wear all these different hats, because there isn't as much opportunity when it comes to being promoted, right? But one thing we have to keep on doing is keep pushing. And then because we mentioned on the Canadian industry not supporting hip hop and like women in hip hop in general, what would you want to tell people within like the Canadian industry? Because I'm sure there's people listening right now who are behind the scenes and are kind of feeling like, yo, like this is a true thing. Like this is how women are feeling in hip hop. Black women are feeling this. We don't want to actually get on the bandwagon later on after they're successful because someone in like Australia or Europe or like America actually rocked with them. So what would you want to say to those like?
Give us money.
Exactly, yo, I'm telling you. And we had a bunch of other videos, but I want us to jump out because we're running out of time, right? So I want us to kind of jump to something else, as you said, with money. So one of the questions I had here was in relation to empowerment with women and on the different granting bodies when it comes to the support they provide. So I had a question here about whether we actually see private and public organizations and companies in Canada investing in Black women in hip hop, and what your perception is on that.
I've had my fair share of shows and opportunities, so I feel like they're trying, but like
I'm just laughing at Daddy's expression.
You know why you think they're trying? Because you know what? There's a time where I thought they were trying too. Because you know, from my perspective of always having to like struggle and work so hard to get like my opportunities, like when like things starts lining up, it's like, oh my God, this is so lit. But like I'll never forget, like, yo, one of my like OGs, like in music, one time I was like, yo, dog, like, isn't this sick? Like, yo, make him get Bad's like, yo, don't ever in your life, like, don't ever, and it wasn't even to try and diss, but it's like, yo, don't ever think that what you're getting right now, in the context of the time that he was talking about, he wasn't wrong. Don't think that what you're getting right now is enough. Because and this is what I'm saying, these conversations are important in terms of talking about worth. I don't want to tell any executive in the Canadian music industry anything about how they should feel about women in that. No, because if you guys don't know yet, you're never gonna know. At the end of the day, what is the Canadian music industry right now for you to not sit down and understand who Sadani is and what my value is on this in this country? Are you dumb? I don't have to explain that to nobody. Just like Dee said, my job is to rap. Her job is to rap. What? Like gems off the South Side? Rapping gems on the South Side. And I'm supposed to be sitting down protesting for Black lives and for my value in the music industry? Never.
That's exactly where I'm at with the whole, you know, asking for any type of bly or opportunity or stuff. I mean, once you realize your worth, and you know, it's crazy to say this, but I started to realize my worth based on like what Sadani was saying, like you were saying, when they started to pay us to come over to Atlanta and New York, Joe's over there and fly you out and put you in a hotel and, you know, and treat you like the artist that you are. When they started to do that and, you know, those opportunities came about and you're doing those things and people are wondering like, why are you so amped about this? Like, this is supposed to be your life, period. It makes you realize like, oh, you know, I'm in my own home city. I can barely catch a opening act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're bringing female artists here. You're bringing rappers here, and you won't put us on the bill. Like we can barely catch an act. So I'm at the point where I'm past asking. I'm past being nice. I'm past wanting some crumbs to fall from the sky. Like it's just about creating opportunities for myself, and whatever comes my way, I earned it. I deserved it, and it should. To be honest, it should be more. And not to sound ungrateful, but it should be.
Yeah, and one thing,
Not even to cut you off.
No worries.
There is in the Canadian industry how little. There's more than enough room for all of us to have that attitude, and there's enough space. There's my value in this Canadian industry is so high. Keisha Fresh's value is so high. Deja's value is so high, and it's just like, what? Like, what can you even say for Canadian music history? Like, the only people, you guys have to go talk to the OGs of 93.5 if you want to know about Canadian history music, because it's not researchable stuff. Like, we are the generation that people are going to be Googling if Canadian industry wants to ever have anything. So, hey, let me just go.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, but
yes, one thing I just wanted to comment on too is, like, a lot of times, so things that can be annoying is, especially when it comes to these policies. So a lot of these granting bodies and organizations have so much emphasis on diversity and inclusion, but when you compare the access that non-Black women and like non-Black people in general and the money that they actually attain from the government versus what's actually being given to Black women, it's like so like despicable. And then another comment that I would like to make as well is the outreach piece. So if you're behind the scenes, you have to go out and seek out people that are being underserved within the communities that you're trying to bring support to. It shouldn't, just as we're all saying, it shouldn't be our job to kind of like seek out anybody in any way. And Keisha, you wanted to bring up a comment?
No, I just wanted to this is like just addition to what Sadani mentioned about having to go and climb up a hill and go look for an OG sitting under a tree in Toronto. They make it so difficult to learn about our history. Like, you know, you have to text Mindbender and text Ty Harper and text these guys from OTA Live to ask them questions when there should be a database. And I know people like Mark Campbell have been working on those things with the North Star Hip Hop Archives and stuff, but I want to be able to Google it and everything is boom right there. There's pictures and interactive maps, to be frank.
No, I hear you with that. And we have a question. Oh, Tracy, you want to bring another comment?
I was about to agree with everything you guys are saying, because I know an artist recently who was in a band or whatever, and they got hired, their band got hired to play somewhere, and then they offered, let's say, $2,000 to them. And then after, they weren't with it because a band is a lot of money and they were worth a lot more. And they went to and they were predominantly people of color. They went to the other band who wasn't predominantly people of color, but he also played in that band, and they offered like 2 times more than that amount. I'm just leaving it right there.
Yeah, there's major discrimination like across the board. So true. And so we have 2 questions here that I just want to get to in the chat. So someone asked, how do you personally address stereotypes that you have encountered as a Black female hip hop artist?
I think it's kind of difficult because I don't think these are situations that I've actually seen myself. So you know what I mean? I feel like it's more so like these things are happening in the background. Say there's an opportunity for me, and there are people who are non-Black or non-women, and they get that opportunity versus me, who probably deserved it a lot more, or I'm more talented, or whatever it is. I don't think really I've experienced it face to face. I feel like it's just working in the background against me. So it's kind of hard to and actually it's actually testament to the fact that I've been rapping for 10 years and I'm still living with my mother. So that's kind of the testament right there, that the fact that I have so much to give to music, and I'm still struggling to make a dime off of it.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And I feel like that's like the sentiment with a lot of like artists in Toronto, where it's like it's almost a situation where you're putting so much effort into it and putting so much into your craft and your art, but you aren't getting the same in return. So I don't know if anyone has any other comments on addressing, like personally addressing stereotypes that you have encountered as a female rapper.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's all addressed with your music, you know.
No, I hear you. And one thing I don't know, like I don't know if you've ever kind of get this where people automatically assume that your music isn't up to par with people from North America just because you're from Canada. I don't know if people automatically assume that when they hear, oh, you're a Canadian artist. People kind of put that label on you when they haven't even heard your music, but once you're Canadian, they're like, oh, you're Canadian. As long as you're not Drake, well, we don't think you have like anything to offer, you know?
Or they'll hear you and think you're from somewhere else. Like
exactly.
Like, which I mean, that's funny as hell. But anyway, like, I feel like in terms of stereotypes, the biggest stereotype that I'm always trying to tackle, because the biggest stereotype I'm always trying to tackle is like how desirability politics work in favor or against like dark skin and bodies, and like what is like my self-perception, like, and like how I just how I navigate that through my art, you know what I mean? Like giving myself the space to like do what I want and look how I want without having to explain myself to anyone, while also like having those like conversations with myself about like why I might not feel like adequate enough, or like how the industry also like perpetuates that. Cause like, you know, we want to talk about like the larger music industry, all like labels, whatever. A lot of times, like just as much as our community supports us, it's our community that is gatekeeping us and crippling us, and, or I shouldn't say use that word, but gatekeeping us and stopping us, like preventing us from like getting to where we want to go. And it is often because of like how the fuck we look, you know what I mean? And like, as a dark-skinned woman, you know what I mean? Like how I occupy my body versus if I was like 4 shades lighter, or like my hair was longer, or like always challenging those things in terms of how I present myself. And like, I was gonna say how I present images, but I only have one music video, so.
Yeah, but I totally hear you with that, Sudani, because that's one issue where, unfortunately, within like society in general, colorism is like a major part of a lot of the issues we face. And then when it comes to colorism as well, a lot of times, unfortunately, people see Black features as undesirable, and it makes it to a situation where when you're a Black woman, you're deemed as undesirable unless you're taking the hypersexualization, and then you become like completely objectified. And that's kind of
they
like
ramify you, and you're not allowed to look sexy at all. It's like, okay, if your body is a certain way, it's like they're gonna Aunt Jemima you down, and it's like
exactly. And that's exactly a point, because we were going to show a video that like, because of time, I'll have us like just talk about it, but it's even like something worldwide where when it comes to being a Black woman, a lot of times the perception is if you don't fit the specific skin color, body type, whatever like Eurocentric standards of beauty there are, then you're looked at as you're like this mother figure, you know, you're not like an actual, you're able to just be yourself, right? And that's something that's unfortunately a stereotype that definitely needs to break. Does anyone else have any other comments on this? Okay, so I'll just go to another question that we have in the chat. So we have a question here. What do you think are some of the main issues / consequences resulting from the use of misogyny in lyrics in hip hop? So pretty much, how does misogyny in lyrics in hip hop affect women in general, or what are some of the consequences?
It's a hard thing to talk about that, because I feel like
I don't know who posed that question, and please don't take the beginning of my response as an attack, but I feel like a lot of times the people who are asking those questions are non-Black people and using that angle to weaponize issues within the Black community. And
So
like
true.
misogyny is a worldwide issue. It's an issue across races and across class, across, you know what I mean? So how, you know, I feel like it's less about how, because like the clip that you played talking about about ownership, right? And like the conversations around who's owning hip hop, who's steering the ship of like mainstream music, you know what I mean? And even when we talk about like women in like female rappers who are in the mainstream media, you know, like, who is deciding that these are the examples of like feminine liberation, strong, that we want, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, there's so many other narratives in the Black community, in hip hop in general. So it's like, I feel like it's in comparison to like actual domestic abuse, economic disparity, gentrification, jobs, you know, sexuality, the prison industrial system, those are so much bigger, larger, real issues in terms of how misogyny affects the Black community and affects, you know what I mean, in terms of how people talk in music. Because for women, we could talk about like, you know, sex, sucking dick and patting your pum pum, and that is seen as sexual liberation because of how certain places.
Yo.
No, I hear you, Sadaq, because what you're saying is
right. What I'm talking about, though, because in Yard, like, because of how women are sexually oppressed or repressed, like, when we talk about certain type of things in music, it's like, it's liberation, but people make it, but when mans talk about it, it's a different angle, but there's so many different things, I think, that are a problem in terms of, like, misogyny in the Black community. And hip hop is bad because it's branding the larger issues, you know, if that makes sense, you know what I mean?
Exactly, and that's the thing. So it's kind of like, it's similar to like initially what we watched in, even with Nina Simone talking, where like artists are like reflecting what's happening in general, and that society, the broader society, is perpetuating misogyny and a lot of these different things with patriarchy and white supremacy. So that's going to be reflected in the music. And based on what we're pushing is the narrative that's going to be in the forefront. So a lot of these different consumers and white executives are pushing these things to the forefront by supporting it. And that's all we see when there's like a plethora of artists doing a bunch of dope things in a variety of ways and representing themselves in so many different diverse ways. So I totally agree with you on that.
I also just wanted to piggyback off of that a little bit and just basically I truly want you guys to really hear what Sidani just said when she said that misogyny has, especially in a lot of recent conversations, really been used to weaponize Blacks against Blacks and men against women in Black music. I can tell you, you know, from, you know, I'm just being honest in who I am. I'm a Black woman, but growing up, you know, listening to hip hop, and even at this age, you know, now I can identify what I'm hearing in the music, you know, from back in the day. I'd be listening to a Biggie song and like, oh, like he really said that about women. But at the end of the day, like, you know, that's music that I grew up on, music that I listen to. So as we are steering into a more of a direction where things are more, I guess, broad, and we can actually have these discussions, my question that I pose to people who ask me about that is, do you have these conversations with men? Do you sit with the men in your lives and have conversations about misogyny? It just always seems to come up when it's a question, when we're talking about hip hop. Every time there's a discussion about hip hop, everyone wants to talk about misogyny. And like Sidani said, it's not something that just affects the Black community in hip hop. It affects every genre, every profession, everybody, everywhere. So, but it only seems to come up when we're talking about hip hop music. And, you know, I'm a little tired of it, just to be honest.
Yeah, and that goes back to the vilification of hip hop, where a lot of times we're vilifying because automatically people already are afraid of Blackness and already emphasize that Blackness is negative and it's related to something negative. So it kind of like hampers on that vilification of the music that is produced by Black culture. So I totally hear you on that. So there's another question here in the comments as well about previously before COVID-19. how was everyone's experiences when it came to getting venues and accessing festivals and participating? Is it like something where you felt like you were supported in comparison to people who were non-Black or people who aren't men?
Are you specifically talking about COVID-19?
So before COVID-19, they're asking. So
Before?
Yeah.
Oh,
how was it?
I mean, you know, this is a topic that I had brought up on Twitter actually earlier today. I mean, venues currently, there is a coalition of Canadian venues and stuff like that, coupled with booking agencies and studios and promoters and stuff, and they're looking for funding. I received that communication asking for funding from an organization who, it's Canadian Music Week, I'll just mention my name. And my experience with Canadian Music Week, every time I've played with them, has not been a great experience. They do not treat hip hop artists properly. They do not treat Black women properly. They don't pay us. They pay us peanuts. So for them to do something like this and create a huge coalition fund that you can't just choose, okay, because there are amongst the names of people that are looking for a bailout, there are some that support us, and there's some community events, Black Canvas, etc. There are Yes All and stuff. So, but there's not an option to just donate to the people that support us. We have to donate to this general fund where there includes venues who don't book Black people. They don't want Black people in their venue. They won't book hip hop artists. So I'm now we're in a position where it's like, well, why would I donate to a fund that includes venues that wouldn't book people that look like me or do the same genre or host the genre of music that I'm a part of?
Yeah.
But then there's also, like I mentioned, people who are. So, you know, that topic of discussion has been happening in Toronto for centuries, for decades. You know, from as long as I was a kid, and my cousin used to do shows. It's something that's just always happened, and venues don't like Black music. A lot of Toronto venues don't like Black music. They're not going to say it to your face, but the questions that they ask you when you go to book a show: oh, what's the crowd? What's the genre? What's the artist?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you'll never hear from them again. They won't. We'll get back to you. You won't hear from them again. So we definitely, you know, are fighting against those kind of forces in the industry, especially here in Toronto. And I don't know how it's something we'll rectify. People say, oh, why don't, you know, Black people just get their own places? Like, it's easy. Like, we just go buy a place downtown and then they raise the rent every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, so it's about DIY for sure, but we need to you know, have serious discussions of how we're going to build our own infrastructure. Because I'm, again, back to the beginning, I'm tired of asking.
Yeah, and that's one thing where, just as you mentioned that, I think with women in hip hop and just Black music in general, there's a lot of devaluing of Black music, just as you're saying, and that affects whether you're booked or not, or whether you get those opportunities. And it's unfortunate, but it's something that I feel like we have to figure out ways to hold these organizations accountable until we're able to get to that point where we can actually own our own and produce our own bodies when it comes to providing support and within the industry and financial support as well. So I don't know if any of you have any comments on accountability when it comes to holding these different entities accountable who aren't providing proper support, or who are like pretending to support but at the same time are paying you maybe $50 to perform somewhere, or something like mad, like bogus in that way.
Again, we're just gonna have to do it without them.
Yeah.
Because once they see that we're doing it without them, they're gonna want to jump base, but then it'll be too late. So they have to just take the L.
You know, so I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. That's a good one. That's a good one. So we have another question here from someone on Facebook. So with so many ways to consume music, streaming service, Spotify, Apple Music, and with live music not happening right now, what's the best way that audiences can support artists financially, where the money or most of it goes directly to you?
E-transfer them.
Period. Period.
Time, like, it's revolution time. And it's like, you know, as artists, like, you already know how much of ourselves we give to like the community, like through performance, through whatever. So it's like all of how I've been able to like build up my home space within the last few weeks has been through like the support of, you know what I mean, the Canadian government, and also my peers, you know what I mean? And also my peers.
Straight. You good?
Yeah, no, it's true. But the thing with it, those you speak the truth because honestly, people don't realize how much like our heart and soul we put into this music stuff, and how much of like just as we're saying, like all of us pretty much are doing like some type of 9 to 5 or something on the side. We can't even actually sustain ourselves with our music alone. To the point where you have to look for ways to kind of like figure out how to continue to do what you love and at the same time feed your like yourself and your family, right? So I totally hear you on that.
And it's definitely the long game too, because being a part of a group like the sorority, we were touring and stuff like that, and you know, when the funds and the money that we got was great off of tour and stuff, but that's this month, that's next month. Like I could say that, you know, put it whatever, but there was never no consistency. And DJ mentioned this earlier, but I'm in the same boat. Like, how do I explain to my mom I'm touring for 2 years straight, but like I just have to live here because we're given peanuts, we're given pennies, we're given, you know, we're not fully given our worth, and we're not consistently supported. So when you pose questions of how to support, open a purse, you know what I mean? Like my Bandcamp link is in my profile. If you really genuinely believe in supporting, buy the album, encourage your friends to buy the album. If you're like, listen, you know what? I just want to support you. My e-transfer link, let me know. Just message me on Instagram. I'll send you the e-transfer link.
We need Cash App, though. They need Cash App in Canada,
artists.
Honestly.
PayPal is international.
Yeah,
exactly.
PayPal, thank you. I don't want to hear no excuse. No excuse. And that's where I'm at with it. Come out of your pocket and genuinely support us. That's where I'm at.
So someone has a question about how supportive do you find the overall Canadian Black community towards your music?
Honestly, Black women are the only ones that have been helping me through to get either like whether it be publications, just in terms of like support. I've only received support from Black women. My manager is a Black man, but he's like one of the many that have access and have knowledge that he was able to give to me for free. Like I didn't have to give him anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like the Black community, we support each other as much as I think that we can, to be honest, because it's just difficult because we have to support each other, but we don't have support ourselves. So it's just like pouring into an empty glass.
We're all pouring from empty cups into empty cups, and it's just recycling.
Yeah, so, you know what I mean?
So I have one of our last, I'm just going to combine these questions together. So how can we create allies when it comes to Black men, when it comes to white people who want to be allies for women in hip hop, Black women in hip hop specifically? How can we create allies?
That's on them. I don't think it's on us to create anything. I feel like if they want to become allies, they need to educate themselves and learn how to kind of become that ally. Like I can't pour into empty cup when I'm empty myself. So like it's up to y'all to be able to create allies, not us, you know?
And what do you think, like ideally, what would you want people who would like to be an ally to do? What would you want anyone who wants to be an ally to do?
I would say just make it less performative. Like just make sure that once you're offline, once there's no crowd, you're still keeping the same energy and you're being the ally, right?
Yeah, and do the research the same way you would Google anything else. Do the research.
That's it. Everybody can Google everything in the world. People know how to Google and Yahoo everything, but when it comes to actual things of merit and things that they actually, you know, should be doing, it's like, can you help me? Can you point me? Can you link me? Like,
that's annoying. It's really annoying. Like someone would be like, "Where's your last track? Where can I find this?" I'm like, you could Google if you really wanted to.
Yeah,
that is annoying.
I feel like it's very important to let allies know that we know that you know. Like the pandering, it's unfair, you know what I mean? And it's like you're going to use your resources, even if all you're able to do is like, share, retweet, whatever, you're gonna like apply the pressure where necessary, you know what I mean? And like Keisha said, it's not gonna be performative, you know what I mean? And you're also not going to like do it based on your like respectability politics and stuff like that. Like you're not providing me the service based on the fact that like I speak really well. It's nothing besides the fact that I'm talented as fuck and I'm under-resourced, you know what I mean? Like a lot of my like quote unquote allies, like they know you cannot take it personally when I go ghost in the thread or when I be doing the dumb shit because mans be having problems. Hello. And like,
I hear you.
And
no, it's true.
To like use your privilege to like accept that and work around that because your system made it impossible for me to live on those same barriers that I'm experiencing. So like you in my personal life, like that, like follow up on email, send a thing back, like you know what I mean? Like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, and just in how like removing that careful. Removing those performative gestures and like being consistent, I feel like it's super important.
No, 100%. And one last question I have as well. So what would you give, like if there's any advice, what would you give to other female rappers who are trying to figure it out and like within the Toronto scene? What advice would you give to any female rappers out there, women in hip hop?
Sorry, say that again.
So if you have like any advice you would give to other women in hip hop, rappers coming up, female rappers, what would you tell them?
Become an accountant. No, I'm just kidding.
Yo, I'm telling you, just so you don't get scammed and stuff. Yo, I'm telling you.
This is hard.
Yeah,
I'm playing. Honestly, I hate when. Well, not hate. It's difficult when people come to me and ask for the advice because no one path is the same. Like I hate these panels and things where they're coming and the main narrative is they're gonna show you how this works or how you're gonna make it. Like no, it's a lot of it has to do with chance and luck and being prepared for that and being deserving of it. So there's really not any way you can map that out, right? So honestly, just do as much as you can in terms of like being your honest self, putting out music that you want to put out for yourself and not for other people. And honestly, the universe and your fans and everything that you deserve will gravitate towards you.
I echo those sentiments 100%. I mean, it's no one person's journey is going to ever be the same in this music industry. So take everything that you learn, everything that you hear, and take these things into consideration. Really pay attention, but take everything with a grain of salt and apply it to how you see fit. Because I know a lot of artists who try to do the same path that I did or the same path that whoever did, and they end up with different results and they're upset, and it's like, yo, my life is different than yours. So definitely that 100%, but also it's not easy. Like, don't come into this thinking I'm gonna make a band every week and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna, don't come into this with high expectations, because it's not easy and you have to be in it for the long haul. I've seen way too many female rappers in this city. They want to rap, they come, they do 2 tracks, you never hear from them again because they're like, oh, I can't deal with the politics of the city. And I'm like, yeah, some of us have been dealing with it for 13 plus years. So don't have too much expectations. Just come and really love it. You have to love this, because if you don't, you're out of here.
True. Just to add on to, like, make sure you're taking care of your mental health. Know when you need to take breaks and things like that. Like they said, it's not easy. You're going to go through a lot of up and downs, but, just continue to take care of yourself. Surround yourself around people who can encourage you. People who are not can kind of kick it to the curb. Like,
yeah, no, I echo that, because it can be crazy, especially with social media. They'll as a Black woman and women in general, they'll tear you apart. So you definitely gotta like keep your mental health in check and just try to be as internal as possible. So Danny, do you have any advice that you would give to any artists coming up?
I would just say work hard to define your originality. It takes time to develop a quote unquote brand. Some people figure it out early. They have a nickname from when they're 12. Their nickname is their rap name when they're 37. You know what I mean? And it just is what it is. But making sure like you take the work to refine your brand, your image, what it is that you want to talk about, what you're pushing, like take time to refine that, and like don't be pressured by what the quote unquote musical standard is in the city, in the overall like industry, because like there's always, they're looking for something fresh, something new. Like repeating what other people are doing is like probably the worst way to start the equation. Always start the equation with something fresh.
No, totally agree with you on that. And one thing I would say, last words for me would be like, learn how to like write grants, figure that out. Like if you need to take a class or something, try to figure that out. And like one thing I would say as well is not to give up, because a lot of times we constantly are like dealing with so many things in our personal lives and so many things like outside that can make you feel like things aren't going to work out. But I would just suggest don't give up. And then for me, even though this is like I would say this advice is outside of music in general, but like listen to motivational content, listen to like read self-help books, do whatever you need to do to keep your mind focused and like keep your eyes on the prize and not give up. So whatever you need to do to surround yourself with like positive ideas, do that. Like, because it gets tough, like being an artist, especially if you're a woman, a Black woman especially. People are gonna like come against you, tear you down, say a lot of negative things that can easily make you feel like you can't reach your goal. So just stay positive by like consuming positive content. So that's pretty much all we have in relation to the questions. We've gone a little bit over time, but just to let everyone know, we're going to be having our session from 7 to 8, which is our showcase, where we're gonna have all our artists here performing as well and sharing their talent and musical content as well. And another thing as well that we'd like to share as well is that we're going to be having a digital art panel where there's going to actually be an exhibition of visual artists celebrating women in hip hop through their art. So that's going to be happening in the next couple of days. So stay tuned for that. For any information, check the Mycemium of Toronto's website or their Instagram page, and you can find all the details there. So it was great wrapping it up with all of you guys. It was so nice to like finally interact with you guys in person. I'm like super excited to check out your music, and please check out everyone's content here, like everyone's music, everyone's stuff, everyone's like content, their pages, follow everyone. And the last thing I would like to say is shout out to Factor for supporting this. Shout out to the Mycemium of Toronto for supporting this. And final thing, I started a collective called Ear-Appeal Artist Collectives to create opportunities and to develop situations like this where we can have women and people on the margins just talk about different issues and look for solutions. So let's get into this and continue the conversation. So thanks to everyone coming out.